Hi, everybody. Welcome into an all-new edition of No Holden Back. It's our Channel 10 WILX reunion tour continuing, and pleased to be joined now by a former co-worker, Aaron Baskerville, who's now in Philadelphia. How are you, man?
Chilling, my guy. Everything's good, man. It's good to talk to you, man. It's been a minute, but yeah, I'm doing good. We're healthy. We're safe here, the family, and just like everybody else, just trying to make the most of what we got going on right now.
Yeah, and certainly you've been out, you've been out in the soup, as I call it, covering all kinds of stories. Nick LaFave was on with me, Jeremy Ross, guys that we all worked with. You may not have worked with Nick, but certainly you and Jeremy were pretty tight. We'll talk about that. He had a couple.
I worked with Nick. Nick was there towards the end of my stay, but Nick was there. Nick came in. He was there probably the last maybe 6 months or so when I was in Lansing. But yeah, I know Nick. Nick was there, and then Nick, when I was in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Nick was there. So
okay, all right. Now that I've got all the pieces connected, man, we can get into some stuff. So you said you worked in Lansing. You told me we were talking offline. You started December of 01. So you and I would have worked together, about little over 2 years.
Yep.
What are still some things that stand out from all the years or the couple of years you spent working in the great state of Michigan in the capital city, man?
I mean, the people, first of all, you know what I mean? Like when you do this job for so long, as you know, like you don't remember, I mean, maybe one or two stories you did. You don't really remember that. You remember just the people. I mean, Lansing was my first job, like that was my first gig. Out of college, I went to go to ESPN. So I worked behind the scenes at ESPN for about a year. And I thought that was going to be like the greatest thing in the world. As you know, I love sports. Sports is my life.
Yeah.
And I just started to become a job. So I was like, all right, let me try and get on TV. My dad had done it for years. Yep. And I landed in Lansing, just kind of randomly. I thought maybe I was going to be like you one day and do sports, you know what I mean? Cover sports, go out there, be on TV doing the sports thing. But I just got in the news. But the things I remember, I remember you and, Stout and, Memo Lyons, the rough and gruff assignment editor, obviously our news director and the people. The things that stand out to me are the people. When you go on TV and it's your first job and you're kind of away from home, the people you work with become like your friends, And I don't want to be corny and say your family, but they're like your friends, or the people you lean on because you don't really know anybody else and you're in a random city with nobody you know. So you're young, you're going out, you're having fun, you're going to bars, you know what I mean? Like you're just becoming friends with people. That's the stuff I remember. I remember the names, like I'm still kind of like social media friends with like the Lori Jane Glehas and the Rachel Calderons, but it's all the people, that's what I remember. And I remember my apartment. I lived in East Lansing. So I had this apartment close to campus, and when you're young, you're like, you're just happy to be by something. You're by a big school. You can kind of go out and hang out, and there's still people kind of your age around and stuff like that. But that's the stuff I remember. I couldn't really even tell you one thing I really covered, but I can tell you the people. That's what I remember.
That, you know what? And that's for me too, Aaron. That's the same thing. This whole reunion tour, as I'm calling it, kind of started last week with Nick and Jeremy just going back and forth on Twitter. And I just stopped for a couple minutes and I thought about, those guys and yourself and a lot of other people that I'm going to get in touch with that, I've been gone from the station for 16 years. And, for me, it was my second on-air job, but it was really my first opportunity to do it every single day. Like yourself. And that's what stands out to me, man. It does very much. So you mentioned the people and you mentioned a couple names in there. So Jeremy Ross, our good friend, told me to remind you of this story. There was a night he said it was you, him, and Rachel, and you were at a bar. I don't know if it was Rick's or the Riv or whatever it was, in East Lansing. And it was one of those times when Michigan State, was deep in the tournament in basketball. And Jeremy said he got picked by default to go in
the riots. He's talking about the riots.
That? Yeah. You remember that night?
Wow, man. Yeah, man. I remember that night. Crazy. Because like when I was in Lansing, Jeremy was basically my best friend in Lansing. You know what I mean? Me and Jeremy hang out like every day, every night. Like, we'd go out all the time. So it was one of those nights when let's just be straight up. We're getting after it. You know what I mean? It was the tournament. It was somewhere. It was obviously the tournament. I can't tell you what game.
Yeah, it was in March.
Started off at like Buffalo Wild Wings over there, in East Lansing.
Yep.
Getting after it. And then we moved over. I can't even tell you the name of the bar if it's still there, but there was a bar. It was kind of like a loungy type of area. It was, I don't even know if it's still there, but when we were there, it was like kind of brand new. It wasn't off the main drag where like those other bars are. It was
Right.
next to. Do you know the names of the bars still or no? What's the big
Yeah,
one? There's a big pot, not the ones where the students would go, but there's a big one like off the other street. I just don't remember the streets, but
I mean,
we were there.
The ones I remember before you finish,
Yep.
Rick's, the Riv,
Wasn't
Harper's.
one of those.
I'm sure you've heard of Harper's was in the news.
It was that one. It's Harper's.
Yeah,
so
all right.
It was Harper's, and then right next to Harper's, they had built like a new little loungy place. It was trying to be swanky for the college crew.
Right.
It was like, that's where Rachel always wanted to go, so we always went over there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I forgot. I don't even know, because they were, at that point, remember, they were riding whether they won or lost. So I couldn't even tell you if State won or lost that night. But people hit the streets. And it was starting to get crazy, like they were starting to burn stuff. And there was that one apartment complex that always, they throw the couches and they burn stuff, Cedar something, or I don't know.
Cedar Village.
Cedar Village, there we go.
Yep.
They always burn stuff over there.
Yep.
So we're starting to get, word of that. And you got to remember, there's no social media. I don't even know if I might have had a cell phone, the very first flip phone. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You couldn't really get in touch with people. And I believe Kevin Reagan was our news director at that point.
Right.
And he was probably trying to get in touch with all of us because everybody that would work that was out. We were like all together. So every reporter was together at that point. And I didn't answer the phone, or I was like, yo, I'm not answering this call. I mean, you got to be out of your mind. We've been getting after it for about 5 hours. I'm not going on TV. And I love Jeremy, but Jeremy, he was a company guy. You know what I mean? He wasn't going to say no. But it was also, I mean, if you like news, it was a very newsy event. It was especially for that time, that city, it's a big deal. You know what I mean? Yeah. And let's be honest, if you want to get somewhere else too and go to a bigger market, that would have been a nice little reel, right? Get a nice little tape, get that on your tape.
Yep.
And I remember that Jeremy said yes. And I don't know how it had happened, if like the photographer met Jeremy there, you know what I mean? But we were still there when Jeremy was starting to go on air, or they were starting to film whatever was going on. And I'll never forget, there was this rock wall, and it led straight down like a stairwell. And, they're riding around it, and there's a girl standing on this wall, and the fall is like 20 feet, right? And we're standing there, and she just fell. Boom. Just fell backwards, cracked her head, and was on the ground. And I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my God, what is going on here? You know how you are. We've been out all night. I don't know what's going on. It was a wild time. I could not believe that he ended up doing that. And he ended up being overnight. He worked till like 5 a.m. He worked like the next 5 hours after we'd been getting after it. And I remember talking to him the next day. And I mean, he had great stuff for a reel and a tape. And I think that night they also were like, the cops were in riot gear, and they were, tear gassing people and all that stuff. It was the very first one too. Like, I know after that, Michigan State, unfortunately, was known for acting a fool after they won or lost when they got deep in the tournament. But that was the very, very first one, I believe, maybe 2002, maybe. It was the very, very first time they actually acted a fool. And I remember that. Jeremy was working it. It was a wild night. We've been out for 4 hours. We started early, started like at 6. You know what I mean? Like, went out, wanted to watch a couple tourney games, and then hit about 3 other bars. And then all of a sudden, station is like trying to get in touch with anyone. And Jeremy's like, all right, I'll do it. And I was like, you're out of your mind. like, what are you doing? I don't even know how he went on air, to be honest. I would love to see that, like, that raw, that tape, those outtakes of just him on air. It's just wild.
I can relate. I had a few moments myself covering the team, and it was actually that year with Steve Kuhn, who's also on the list to do one of these. He's taking one with me later, and he's probably just going to want to tell all the stories from me being on the road, which is fine. Right, but I had a few days where I looked back and I was like, I can't believe they put me on the air. Like, seriously, AB. Crazy.
I mean, the things that people get away with, but like after because that's early in our career, what I mean? That's literally a year in. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. I mean, this is going on almost, 18 years. At this point, you can get away with more stuff. You know how to, how to get in and out of stuff. You know how to finagle your way. You know how to make things look right, even though you might not be in the right mind frame, depending on what it is I mean, so it's much easier now to get away with that stuff. But like, you're 6 months, 8 months into your first TV job ever. You're nervous as it is. I mean, when I was in Lansing, man, I was dead nervous every time, man. I remember we really didn't even have a live truck. So if we went live, I was going live like once every like 4 months. You know what I mean? We weren't going live twice a day, every day. You know what I mean? So like, I mean, my heart was beating out of my chest every time I was on air in Lansing. I was just happy to have a job. I was scared to death. You know what I mean? So like, I couldn't imagine like, 6 months into a job, also having a few in you, then trying to do that. It's just crazy.
Yeah. I'm sure Memo is going to get a kick out of this because I tagged her in the one with Jeremy last night and she watched the whole thing and was replying to both of us. So, I mean, since we're on Mem, because Mem was mother hen, man. I mean, let's be honest. She kept us all together. Are there things that you vividly remember dealing with her, a moment, or just in general, Aaron, some things that maybe she helped you with to help you in your development down the road?
Well, I mean, I will honestly, because it's your first job, things are more ingrained in your mind, Yep. That is a person I will never, ever, ever forget. Just because it's the first job, and she was just like, she was rough, she was in your face, she was straight to the point, which I love, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. She'd be like, yo, this sucks. You suck. What are you doing? Like, you went over here and you didn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, she gave your faith. One time, I remember I went to go cover like the new mayor. It was first year that, I don't know what I'm doing, man. It was a new mayor, and he just won the election, right? So it's like January 1st, he's getting sworn in, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm doing a piece on, whatever, hey, the mayor's getting sworn in. Let's do a piece, right? And I did a whole piece, and I never actually put the swearing in the piece.
Nice work.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Memo just gave it to you. What are you doing? You go to cover this, and you're not gonna. And I'm like scared. I don't know. I'm scared to death because, to be honest, I was more afraid of her than like Reagan or anything. Our news director, our bosses. She was the one who like I wanted to like impress her. You know what I mean? Because she was so hard on folks. But over time, she became to like really respect me and give me good feedback and help me out a lot. But I just remember her like riding people. And I don't even know the name. There's some people who would do like those. You remember we used to do the newsroom, like live shots.
Yeah, and then the sports guys were behind you walking, throwing stuff. I remember.
Exactly. And at one point you had to do them like right in front of the assignment desk, was in the middle of the newsroom. So it was right in front of Memo. And like I remember Jeremy and some others like just would have a tough time right there. It's just nerve-wracking. It's weird. You're just your first job and you're like going live in the middle of a newsroom. And you never go live ever, so you have no experience. And then you're sitting in front of this rough and gruff Memo Lions who just eyeing you down, you know what I mean? Yeah. And making sure every word you say is right, which you should be doing.
Sure.
And I just remember her riding people who would be messing up in the middle of the newsroom, and just people were so nervous. I just remember her being outside smoking cigarette. You know what I mean? Like Memo was great, man. I mean, she was great. I learned how to like ask questions from her, you know what I mean? Like, she would always be like, all right, this is the story you're going to do. These are things we need to know about. And here's why we need to know about this type of stuff. And here's why you should ask this question. Like, don't just go on there and be a softball type of guy. And that's what she taught me, I mean, she was literally like, at that point, she's the epitome of like a old school newsroom person. You know what I mean? Just kind of like hardcore, chain smoking, in your face, nothing but 100%. I want the best out of you, and I'm going to ride you until I get it. And if you're weak, you're going to break down. And if you're not weak, you're going to be so much better for it when you leave here, And I was. I mean, after 2 years or so, I was so much better than when I walked in there. And I've just taken kind of just that, like, be tough and don't be like a pushover type reporter. And it started with her, to be honest. I mean, she probably has no idea that I even remember her or anything like that. But
she's got an idea.
She sticks out. I mean, we started, by the time I left, I had a great relationship with Memo. You know what I mean? She was like, like I said, you don't have family. You're just, everybody there is your friend, and that's who you lean on. memo with somebody like you could count on. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
even if you're having a bad day or something, she'd recognize it. She'd take it easy on you if you were really down, and she'd try and build you back up or pick you up. But yeah, she was like a mother away from home. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Like people don't understand how tough it is when you're young and you move away for a job and you don't know anybody. It's kind of like college. You know, there was a college atmosphere like that. A lot of us lived in the same kind of apartment-y type apartment complexes that resembled dorms. You know, you're making no money. I mean, I don't even know what I was making, like $21,000. You know what I mean? $20,000 in Lansing. So, and the photographers were making less. They were making like 14 back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you imagine that? $14,000 for people would be like, wait, you worked for a television station and you made 14 grand? Yeah. And I had to like it. You know, it was crazy.
Yeah. Well said, man. And, you know, I'll just say this about Mem. I mean, she rubbed off on me in that way, because ask Colthorpe about what it was like working with me for a couple of years. And, you know, at the end of the day, right, that look said it all. But at the end of the day, I mean, there's a reason behind it. And obviously, you know, you grew up around this stuff, and I want to get into that with your dad too. So I think that's probably something for you that, you know, like I said, we'll get into it. It was something that was probably a big help for you. And you grew up in Philly, so Philly people are tough as nails, man. So, you know, I can understand that.
I'm still an East Coast guy at heart, regardless of how much I've grown up in the Midwest and lived there. I mean, everybody used to say that, like, I just haven't, like, I have an attitude sometimes, and just the way it is, and I speak my mind, and I'm not quiet. And it's kind of what East Coast people, Jersey and Philly people are known for.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I know a lot of people from, well, it's a rival city, but I got a lot of friends I work with in New York. So I get it, man. I totally understand. So yourself, like your buddy Ross, you guys both made really nice jumps out of Lansing. For those that don't know, at the time that we were all together, Lansing was like 105, 106 market size. Jeremy went to Milwaukee. You went to Buffalo. So you went into was Buffalo a top 40 back then?
Buffalo at that point was right on the edge. It was like 39, 40. It was like right there at that point. It was, I mean, people don't like, I mean, we can get into new stuff all you want, but back then making jump like that was a big deal. Nowadays people jump much bigger markets. It's just a different atmosphere. People are MMJs, which means they shoot and edit their own stuff. And that's that's more attractive. That can allow you to jump markets easier because they don't have to pay you as much. There's all the different things. So nowadays people jump markets even a bigger jump. They'll go from 100 into a top 20. You know what I mean? But back then it was a nice jump. Buffalo was a nice news town. It was every move is scary. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every time you move to a different city, and remember back then I'm moving by myself. You know what I mean?
Right.
So moving from Buffalo was even scarier than moving to Lansing, because Lansing was 3 hours away from Chicago. You know, I can drive home whenever I want.
3 to 4, depending on what side of the city. Yeah.
And depending on how fast you drive, right?
That too, yeah.
But my point was I can get home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or my family can get to me. When you move to Buffalo, you're out there.
Yeah.
So you're by yourself. Nobody's coming to really visit you. So, I mean, this is a growth moment. But, it was cool. I mean, all these jumps are good for you when you're in TV. I mean, I wouldn't change anything. But, yeah, we made a big jump, and Buffalo is Buffalo. If you know anything about Buffalo, it is everything that you hear. It is everything that you read about. You know what I mean? I mean, good people. You know what I mean? Nice blue-collar town. But it's cold there, and it snows like crazy. And you got to be tough to live there, too, and a different aspect of tough. But you have to be tough to be from Buffalo.
How many years you spend there, and what are some highlights from that stop in your career, Aaron?
Buffalo, I was there for about 2.5 years. I haven't really been – you'll see a trend for the most part. I haven't really been places for a long time, especially at the beginning, because I was just trying to climb and get to – I wanted to make some money. Let's be straight up.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like those first couple of jobs, you're not making money. You're trying to get to a spot where you can balance being in a good city that's diverse and has culture, and you're making enough money where you're kind of satisfied. So I was in Buffalo till about 2007, about 2.5 years or so. Okay. The only memories I really have of Buffalo, I mean, like, once again, I remember some people, but it snowed like no other. I mean, what I mean is like no other. I mean, like 2.5 feet. I'm not kidding.
Oh, I know.
Like legitimately. And the biggest memory was it was October 11th, 2006. They call it the October surprise storm. So it snowed 2 feet on October 11th in Buffalo.
Gosh.
And as you know, all the trees have the leaves on it and stuff like that. It literally knocked down because the weight of the snow was like a heavy snow, that wet, heavy snow too.
Yeah.
Knocked down every single tree in the entire city. Everything was shut down for 11 days. National Guard was brought in. Of course, it was, national crazy news. And I just remember I was supposed to fly home to Chicago it was like I think it was Friday. So say it was a Friday. I think it happened on a Thursday into Friday morning. I went to bed Thursday night. There was no snow on the ground. When I woke up the next morning, there was like a foot of snow. So in a matter of 8 hours, it snowed already 12 plus inches. And my chief photographer calls me up and he's like, yo, are you ready? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Am I ready? I'm flying home tomorrow. I'm about to go to the airport. And I hadn't looked out my window. I lived in a high rise. I hadn't looked out my window. It's like, oh, you haven't looked out your window yet. And I was like, what are you talking about? And I looked out my window and every tree was down and crushed every car. And somehow, some way, my car was parked in between where it wasn't crushed. But I had a dog at that point. I dropped my dog off at the daycare because I was flying back to Chicago from Buffalo. And he's like, yo, did you drop your dog off at the daycare? Because he knew exactly, he was my boy. He knew I dropped my dog off. Yeah. I was like, yeah, why? He's like, yo, that burnt down last night.
Oh, my God.
Like, what? I was like, what? He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, it had an electrical fire. That doggy daycare burnt the hell up.
Wow.
And I started I had my dog at that point. I had my dog for 8 years. I immediately started to cry. You know what I mean? I was freaking out. He's like, let me scoop you. So this is early in the morning. He comes over to me. We go to this daycare. It's burnt to a crisp, to the ground. I'm freaking, right? There's a house next to the daycare and I knock on the door and I was like, hey, do you know what happened? She's like, oh my God, yeah. The daycare owner rounded up every single dog and had them in cars and saved all the dogs. And here's the number. She said, if anybody comes by to give the number and the address. So we go to this woman's house. She has 40 dogs in her house and she has my dog.
Wow.
I pick up my dog. I bring my dog back to my house and then I proceed to work the next 18 hours straight. So that's my biggest memory of Buffalo, but that's just an insight of crazy news. But it just snowed, that's Lake Erie. So when people hear about the lake effect snow there is for real. And,
it is.
And unless you know about it or you've been there, people think it's a joke. But no, it literally does snow 18 inches routinely. And to them, it's crazy because it's really not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? You get 8 inches of snow, you're shut down the city there. They clear it in 2 hours.
Yeah.
And you still have school sometimes. So it's wild.
Yeah. So a couple things. So basically you couldn't wait to get the hell out of there, which you did. And I know, cause I used to go.
You said it. I didn't say that. You said that. I didn't say that.
That's okay. I did say it. When I was in Cleveland in the American Hockey League, we used to go up to Hamilton and we'd go up to Toronto and we'd go over Peace Bridge and we played Rochester, man. So if anyone watching this or listening think, oh, he's crazy. No, he is spot on with his thoughts. Obviously you lived through it. So you go there for 2.5 years and then you come back to Michigan. What was the appeal of coming back to, or am I off by one?
You're off by one. So what I did was so I wanted to kind of go home. So at that point, my wife was still in Chicago. Okay. And the goal was let me get back to Chicago. So there was a 24-hour news station called CLTV.
I've heard of it.
It's similar to New York One in New York, if anybody knows about that. It was basically the cable arm of WGN. Yep. So I would mainly be working for CLTV, but you get chances to be on the big network, so to speak, or WGN. And so I was there. I went there for a couple of years.
2.5 years?
2.5 years. Got the battery, my dog. But no, but it wasn't. At that point, it wasn't my doing. So we had bought a house, or we bought a condo downtown. We bought into a nice condo there. At that point, I'm married, right? Because I proposed to my wife at Niagara Falls when I was in Buffalo.
Very nice.
And then we got married. And then even though we were married, she didn't live in Buffalo. So I'm trying to figure a way to get out and let's get us together. At that point, she didn't want to move. She didn't want to move from Chicago. Sometimes that's where I'm from. I want to stay here. At that point, she wasn't really willing to move. So I took the job back then, but they all of a sudden kind of disbanded CLTV, so I got laid off. They got rid of basically the whole staff and said you can be a freelancer. And as you know, for people who don't understand freelancing, you can get 1 day, you can get 5 days. Your hours aren't guaranteed. At that point, my wife, Megan, she was pregnant with our first child. So you know how you're freaking out. You're like, I don't want to freelance. I need hours. I'm having a kid. I've never had a kid before. I want something steady. So I had a choice between Milwaukee or Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids.
Okay.
And Kalamazoo wanted me to anchor. They're like, we want you to anchor. So I was like, all right. So that's what brought me back to Michigan after Chicago, just to kind of get behind the desk more, anchor, just kind of have that under my belt. So, which has proved to be helpful, obviously moving down the line. But yeah, I've been to Michigan I was in Michigan, and that was the longest stint there. No 2.5 years there in Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo. 6. Yeah, I just
I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, I was just wasting away basically. Over there. Yeah.
I saw. Yeah. So what?
I was there for a while.
I didn't know you were there at the time. And
right.
Again, you and I talked offline, and we were talking about this a little bit. So I had a hockey game at Western. It was either hockey or a football game, one of the two. It might have been.
It was hockey. It was hockey. I remember hockey.
Yeah. So I'm flipping. And one thing I do, Aaron, is this is kind of a little, I don't know what you call it, but when I go on the road, as you know, I go on the road a ton normally. I'm on the road like every week, usually for about 9-10 months out of the year. One thing I like to try and do at some point is watch the local news, so I know what the hell's going on in the city I'm in. And even in Kalamazoo, just even though it's only 90 minutes from where I live outside Detroit. So I'm flipping channels one night, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know that guy. And you're doing the sports, man. So you mentioned how much of a sports nut you are, and how many times did you do that when you were over there?
Well, at the time you saw him, it was my first night ever. I probably did it maybe like 6 or 7 times, because it was a weird, at that point my main gig, I was anchoring weekend nights. So I was anchoring, we had like a bunch of newscasts. So I was anchoring like the 6, the 10, and the 11 on weekend nights. And I was reporting 3 days a week at the nights. I was the main fill-in like for during the week when the main anchor would be off, I'd fill in during that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the main sports guy was off. And then like the number 2, something, we only had 2 at that point. We only had 2 guys. Some departments are bigger. And the number 2 had something special going on. I don't know. You know what I mean? Something he couldn't miss. And they were all freaking out. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with sports? We got to have sports. We can't cancel sports. And they're like, Aaron, you're going to do sports. And I was like, what? I was like, what am I? I don't know. Like, and back then, still now, but they were doing it all. Like the sports guys were like not only rolling on the highlights, they were cutting the highlights. Yep. Right, as you know, you're writing the entire, sports cast and all that stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll do it and I'll write it. I go, but I can't edit because I still don't know how to edit. I'm like, I'm not editing it. You know what I mean? So you'll have to give me somebody else to roll on the highlights and edit the stuff. So as you know, just like with you, everywhere I go, the sports guys are my boys. You know what I mean? Because those are like my guys.
We're fun guys.
Yeah, those are the people who I would hang out with the most, talk to the most, have the most in common with. So every stop I've ever been with, the sports guys are immediately my boys. So these guys were my boys already, you know what I mean, in sports. Yeah. So he's like, I'll just leave you a list of like the important stuff today. You know what I mean? Like there's, the K-Wings are playing whatever there's a couple high school stuff that's important. I'll let you know what you guys should roll on. They gave me a photographer who sat in the sports, and I just made up some stuff and sat there. When you turned it on, that was my first sports cast. I was just like, sports for me was cool because you don't have to be stiff when you're an anchor, but sports, you can let loose. You know what I mean? You can laugh, you can have fun, you can kind of tell jokes, you can be more loose with your writing, all that type of stuff. So I enjoyed it. And I probably did it like 4 or 5 more times while I was there, just emergency relief. And I had fun with it because to me, once you're anchoring and get, understand how to anchor a little bit, that you can be really loose in sports. You know what I mean? You can ad lib, you can banter, you can talk, you can do whatever you want over highlights, as you know. You can have free reign over stuff.
You said it. You can just make up stuff, man. That's what I've been doing my whole career, man. I just make it up.
You're the best at it too, right? Once you get really good at it, you start to get paid for doing it.
Yeah, well, that's cool, man. So then you stay there. You said 6 years, right?
Yeah, I stayed there. Yeah, I was there from like Yep, 2009 to like 2015. Yeah.
And then you pop up on my TV again. You work in Detroit. You're at Channel 7, the ABC affiliate.
Yep.
What was that stint like for you? What do you still remember and take away from that experience there?
I mean, that was great. That's where, like, to me, I really, like, reporting wise, I feel like that's where, like, even though it sounds weird to say it clicked, but there it was like, boom, you know, I mean, I always had like crazy confidence in myself. You know, you have to in this business, you know, because you're on TV, the whole world sees you do good, the whole world sees you mess up, you know what I mean? So to speak, you know what I mean? Like, your mistakes are made in front of the public. But Detroit was such a breaking news town, and we covered at Channel 7, we just covered breaking news like crazy. When I mean like live shots, breaking news, on the scene, show me what you got, and live it up. There are no notes. You better know your story. And then just start talking for a minute and a half to 2 minutes. We'll let you flow, walk around the scene, show us what's going on. And that's what in my opinion, that's what I excel at. And that's what I'm best at. And that's when I was able to do that there. You know what I mean? Almost every night it was some sort of crazy, you know, Detroit has wild, crazy news for folks who don't understand or know. Every night it's just something, it's something just out of the ordinary and weird, and just, you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, from just crazy car crashes and cars going through houses with like kids inside, but the kids live, but the car's stuck in the, you know, just weird and just, you know, national news type stuff. But that was great. I was just able to cover breaking news. I was able to really get a feel for, if people don't really realize, like, for me, when I do breaking news, I don't have anything scripted. I don't have anything written down. I do it a lot differently than other folks. You know, I know some people have their phone out and they'll write down what they're going to say, like for a VOSOT, so to speak, a live VOSOT, as you know, where I would talk over pictures and then toss the sound. I do all that unscripted. I never write anything down ever. And
that's the sports guy in you, man.
Right. That's the sport. That's that. You know what I mean? Being able to do that is kind of just a kind of a trait. And that really honed in, and it really refined it in Detroit. And that's become what I'm kind of known for. I'm able to decipher information and think on your feet. And just like you would do in sports, just like when you're calling a game, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen in the next play. You got to be able to digest that information, think on your feet. In your case, sometimes even try and be witty and be able to flow with what's going on in a game. And you're able to do that. You're able to do that seamlessly. And it's kind of the same thing when you show up to a breaking news scene and you don't really have time to write down something and script it out. And they, as you know, they want you on air immediately. You know what I mean? So it's not like, hold on a second, give me 20 more minutes so I can write, you know, it's, we want you on now. Go.
Right.
Exactly. Are you ready? No. Why not? Go. So that's what I took away from Detroit. It kind of really it made me a better reporter just because you were forced to think on your feet more there and cover more breaking news. And I had a good time in Detroit. I lived in like Beverly Hills, you know, Birmingham area. Real nice area. Family loved it. And I like Detroit, but I mean, I had an opportunity to go to Philly, top 4 market. Right. Money was right. You know what I mean? The first time where like the money was real right. You know what I mean? Like,
I understand. I understand.
You're like, I'm right.
You
know what I mean? Like, I'm right now. I'm good. Now I'm good. Like now I don't have to worry really about. Now you can take jobs if you want it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's no more climbing or doing this anymore. It's up to you now. Like I instead of just chasing that, now it's like, I don't want to do that, or it's up to us. How's the family feel about this type of thing? You know what I mean? Right. So it's good to be here. It's good. It's good to have that feeling of kind of just being somewhat comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, man. I totally right there with you. I did the freelance thing for a ton of years, man. And you know, the last 9 I've been with CBS and bounced around like you did. And I get it. I didn't move like you guys, like you and Jeremy and Nick. And, you know, a lot of people, Colthorpe never really moved. I mean, you went Lansing to here. And, you know, I'm sure there's other folks. Rachel left, I know, and Lori Jane. And, you know, I've been lucky that way. So you know, when I hear you talk about moving, I've only moved once really in my career. That's when I went to the American Hockey League in Cleveland. And, but nevertheless, back to you. So let me make sure I have all this right. So you were born in Philly, right?
Yeah.
And your dad was working in Philadelphia, Steve. How's your dad doing, by the way, in retirement? He's been retired, going on 3 years, right?
Yeah, I think, 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure. Maybe I know he retired like at the end of a year. It might have been 2016 maybe. So something like that.
From what I read, it was 17.
you know better than me. He's loving it. He loves retirement. He loves, first and foremost, he just loves being a grandfather. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was born in Philly. Both my parents are from Philadelphia. They both went to high school here. My dad went to Temple, which is in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So still all of their really good old school friends are still here. So, and a lot of my family's still here, aunts, uncles, cousins, like everybody's still in Philadelphia. So my parents, my dad, they're here like every couple months, like every 3 months before COVID. They were here a lot because they can see relatives. They can, hang out with their grandkids. And my mom was fortunate enough where she never worked because of my dad. So they're both just kind of traveling. Before all of this, they were going to places. They were taking road trips and driving across the country. They were just, hanging out. My dad tried to take up a little bit of golf. He never really played golf before, but he's tried to take up golf for a little bit, hit the course. Just staying busy. My dad was kind of doing what you're doing. There was an old sports guy, Howard Sudbury, who was at CBS and with my dad. He was there at CBS for like 20 years with my dad. So my dad and him are occasionally do a podcast, just gets him out of the house. But he's loving it. He's wrapped up in my kid's life now. You know what I mean? He's just always calling, FaceTiming. What are they doing? Show me some videos. Let me see them playing sports. What's going on? But they're here a lot. So he's traveling a lot and coming here just to try and hang out with the family. He seems to be loving it, enjoying it, sitting in the backyard, smoking on a stogie now and then. You know what I mean? Just got no cares. You know what I mean? It's good to be him. I'll tell you that.
That's awesome. For those that don't know, your dad was your dad always a weatherman, or did he do news, or was he strictly weather?
He was strictly weather.
Okay.
He actually did like before he got into it, because back then, now you need all the seals, and do you have the AMS seal and this seal, and do you have the schooling? Back then you didn't need any of that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he started in like the mid to late 70s. He was a radio guy. First of all, he was a school teacher. He was an English school teacher. Very first thing. Yeah. So my dad is a stickler for writing in English and speech. You know what I mean? So back in the day, if you ever said like sentences and words wrong, my dad would always correct you. You know what I mean? He was that guy. No, that's not. You got to say it like this. You better get your stuff straight. But he was like he had like a radio. He did like a children's radio show, like Spider-Man. And he did like in Philly, he did like a kid's radio show. And then that somehow segued into like one of those old school kids, like television shows, like the kids in the audience type of thing. Like, hi, and I'm here. Like one of those, like almost like Bozo, but not Bozo, but a kid show.
I got you.
And someone there saw him and was like, you'd be good for our weather position. Because back then you're more of a presenter. You know what I mean? Like you got personality, we like you, whatever. Mm-hmm. So went in for a tryout at KYW, which is now the CBS. Back then it was the NBC in Philly. But he went to KYW and got the gig and was a weatherman for 40 years. And he was at Philly, and then he went to the network in like the early to mid 80s. And he was with like Connie Chung and Schwarzenegger's wife. What's her name? Do you know her?
Maria Shriver.
Yeah, Maria Shriver was another anchor. My dad went to Schwarzenegger's wedding. Went to that wedding. It's the craziest. It's pretty wild, by the way. The pictures we have in our house of who was at. You can just imagine who was at Arnold Schwarzenegger's wedding in the mid '80s. Just imagine how buck wild that was. But he went to the network for a couple years, and he went to Chicago, and he ended his career in 2016. And he was all fired up because around 2011 or so, they made him actually go to school and get the SEALs. So I've never seen a human being so mad. He's like, I've been doing this for 35 years. I've been in Chicago for 30, 28 years at this point. At this point, they either trust me or they don't. You know what I mean? And at that point, my dad was, him and like Skilling, they were another weather guy. They were like the most watched weather guys in the city. Like he was known. He was, you know what I mean? Like people didn't care about the SEALs anymore. But my dad did go back. He went back to school and he got to all the SEALs. It's pretty funny. Now
they want to see if I can do my job, probably is what he said, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talked about, the influence of your dad with, the English and speaking
Yeah,
well and
yeah,
writing
yeah, yeah.
and all that. So did you feel, did you feel like it was always like your destiny to end up doing what you're doing because of your dad's influence? I mean, I've got a 19-year-old son who's studying communications. And as you and I know, that's a wide umbrella of things you can do. And
My,
I've told my son, Aaron, I said, don't do what I do just to do it, but do whatever you want to do. How was it for you though?
my dad didn't want me to do this.
He didn't.
No, he
Yeah.
wanted no part of me doing this, to be honest,
Okay.
because he just, listen, this is not an easy business. As you know, it's a rough business.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, he wasn't discouraging me. He wasn't like, but he was just like, I think he wanted more stability. You know what I mean? He wanted a job that was stable. As I told you, I already described what I've been through. It's not, I wouldn't change anything. I'm not mad at it, but you're moving, you're trying to find the right fit and all this stuff.
Not making any money.
Right. Not making any money. And he wanted something more stable, but he was behind. If this is what you want, I'm behind you 100,000%.
Yeah.
All I knew when I was a kid or when I was in college or whatever was that I just wanted to be involved in sports. So I didn't think I was destined to be on TV or to do that. I mean, at one point I maybe just wanted to work for like a professional franchise, you know what I mean? Be in maybe communications or something like that way, work in PR, work in their media department for, an NBA team or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, to me, those are great jobs. I'm still in the sports world. I'm with players. I'm there for all the late breaking sports type news. So I always kind of thought maybe I'd go that way. But when I was at ESPN, sports just became kind of not fun because it was a job and I had to watch sports so critically. And I wasn't watching it for the game. I was watching it for you're logging a game. So like, I'm not just logging it for each play. I've got to, at ESPN, it's like, I need this low, tight ISO shot of
cutaways.
Whoever. Cutaway. You know what I mean? I'm lost. And then when I would watch the game or watch Sports Center, I'd watch it that way. Oh, look, somebody made a mistake. Look at that highlight. That's wrong. Oh, the anchor, he messed that up. Oh, somebody messed up the shot sheet. The anchor's going to be mad. Like, I was looking at it like that. I wasn't just watching it. And for me, sports was my time to just detox, not think about anything and just watch it. So I had to get away from that. And, I went to Northwestern, I went to graduate school and kind of fell into being on TV. And that's when I leaned on my dad more because I've just, I talked to him about kind of what I would go through or how to approach this or, more of the on-air presentation than like, how to like craft a story or interview people. It was just how to because when you're on TV, especially live, you have to be comfortable in every situation. Meaning
Absolutely.
Like, you have to be comfortable going live when there's nobody around. You have to be comfortable going live when there's 1,000 people screaming at you. You have to be comfortable going live when one person is looking at you standing. You have to be comfortable going live inside a meeting where people are in it. You know what I mean? Like, there are 50 million scenarios that you are live in, and you have to be comfortable in every one, and each one presents a different challenge.
Yeah.
So I talked to him a lot just about how to just be comfortable and kind of be yourself. Because when you find when you're able to find yourself on TV, that's when it becomes real and people can relate to you and people like you more. Oh, I like his call more because it just seems more natural and he seems more real and he's somebody I can relate to. And, oh, I thought about the same thing he just mentioned in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. It's just more real. And like when you are comfortable on TV and people see that, they want to watch you more, and they're not just some news guy trying to put on a fake voice and be fake. And that's when you find the most success, I feel like, is when you can find that balance of, doing your job, but also not losing yourself when doing it and reporting.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned something I wanted to get to, and I want to kind of get into a little bit of the things that are going on now in the world and obviously things you're covering. You said, whether there's nobody around or there's 1,500 people or whatever the number was you put on it, you got to be able to perform. And you do it well. Obviously, I've seen you. You're a pro. You're, working in Philly. We know that. But talk to me a little bit about some of the things that, I guess first, let's start with what's it been like being a reporter for you with, first of all, this coronavirus and the COVID. What's that been like going to work every day, man?
Well, in the beginning, there's so much information out there, and and it's changing. And so in the very beginning, we're not allowed still. So right now we have two basically locations in Philly for two buildings, and most people still aren't going in the buildings right now. Okay. So most people are still working from home, meaning like most of the behind the scenes people, producers, all that stuff. We still have the anchors at our station. One is at home and one is in the studio. So we still have that split. So the weather people are still mostly, all of them are at home. Okay. So that's still here in Philly. It's still a real concern. I've worked, they've made it so where crews only work with the same person. That's it. So I've worked with the same photographer, only him, for the last 4 months. I don't work with anybody else. We're a lot of the times we're in rental cars, so we don't even use the live trucks anymore. And we have a live viewer. We have a device that will allow us to go live if we have to. Okay. A lot of times they've done away, at least I work nights, so I work 3:30 to 11. So if it's something big, I'm in the earliest. Mostly I'm in the 11 o'clock news. They've done away with a lot of late night live shots too, unless it's breaking. Because if you're telling everybody to stay indoors, what's the point of us being outside? You know what I mean? In the beginning, it was scary, man. You know what I mean? Because you just didn't know what was going on, and you didn't know, like, oh, if I touch something, am I going to get it? Am I going to bring it home? Or my kid's going to get it? Am I going to die? You know what I mean? Like in the very, very beginning of this. So, everybody was real cautious. We still are real cautious. We're working with masks. I have a mic with a long, like 6-foot pole where, we try not to get close to people when we're interviewing them. So that was all, different. And we were doing, teleconferencing, everything. We don't meet in person. We do, like Zoom meetings or whatever. So the other meeting is Microsoft Teams. We meet in, we get our stories, we go out and we go home type of thing. It's kind of one of those things, get in, get out. But that all changed with Floyd.
Right. That's where I was going next. Go ahead. So
now I'm in, so now basically all of the so to speak, COVID protocols kind of sometimes go out the window, because I'm, as you know, in Philly, just like any other major city, now I'm covering large, gigantic protests, right? I mean, thousands upon thousands of people. And you have to cover it, right? So it's kind of hard to social distance while covering such an important event in history, to be quite honest right now.
100%.
So I was live in protests, walking with people, for 2 weeks during the time period right after he was killed. So that was, I mean, quite frankly, this is the wildest time of my life ever. Just for, and most people don't live through a pandemic and go through the things that we've gone through with shutting down and maneuvering through that. And I have kids in school, and how do we keep them learning, and they're not going to school, and keep them focused. And now I'm a teacher and I have a job to go to, and, all that different stuff. And then Floyd happens, and I was actually here. It was a Saturday. It happened on Wednesday with Floyd. And then, as you know, the next couple of days, you saw the protesting and some of the looting going on in Minneapolis. And then obviously slowly the other cities in the country started to protest, and things started to pick up. And so if that happened on a Wednesday, you saw Wednesday, Thursday, Minneapolis. I think Friday, you started to see LA and some other big cities, pop up. And then that Saturday was basically Philly's turn, so to speak. We knew that was going to be Philly's first protest, right? So we knew you got to be ready. So I don't work the weekend, so I'm off. And you can't do anything during these COVID days. So it's my son's birthday, and we're taking a walk, because that's all we do now. You know what I mean? We're taking a family walk, and there's this trail by my house. We're able to walk a trail. We're able to go into the city. We go to an ice cream shop or whatever that's still open, social distance. We walk back to our house type of thing. And it was like 7 o'clock that Saturday, and my phone's ringing off the hook, but nobody's leaving a message. So I'm not answering it, right? Because it's on my son's birthday, and I know. So then I get home, and I don't recognize the number. And my boss, whoever needs to get in touch with me, he texts me. He knows how to get in touch with me. So I was like, it could be the station, but they're not leaving a message, or nobody's texting me. So whatever, I'm going to continue on with my day. I get home like 7 o'clock, and it's on my work phone. It's the same number. So I was like, all right, something must be going on. And I answered. They're like, yo, you need to come in. Can you please come in? It's, it's getting buck wild out here in Philly. I was like, all right, yeah, let me go down. So I go in, we go downtown. We got to park our vehicles underground. So we have a brand new state of the art. Like we spent like $100 million on this in a high rise. It's three level studio in the tallest building in Philly. It's the Comcast Technology Center because we're owned by Comcast, right?
Yeah.
So we have 12, 13, 14 floor. Above us is the Four Seasons. It's the most beautiful new studio you'll ever see in your entire life. It's literally, I think it's the jewel of all of NBC, like even more than like in New York City and Rockefeller.
Man.
So we got to park all our vehicles underground so they don't get busted up, right?
Yeah.
My news director comes out and he's like, I don't want you. I had like on a polo, like a station polo. He's like, I don't want you to wear that. I was like, why? He's like, it's crazy out here. He's like, wear this shirt. And he's brought me a shirt. It was like a t-shirt. I'm like, can I wear this inside out? Because it still had an NBC logo on. He's like, yeah, I don't care. So now I have jeans on, and I remember I have COVID hair too. So my hair was out, you know what I mean? Looking wild, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have an inside out t-shirt and I have a backpack on. Just my backpack, like a regular backpack, you know, like, because I just had my stuff in it. I didn't know what the night was going to do. I wasn't be able to get back to the station. I wasn't be able to get back to a vehicle. Remember, it's like, at this point, it's like 8, right?
Yep.
And we're on I'm not watching, but we're on TV. You know what I mean? It's one of those, like, around the clock, you're just on TV because it's that wild.
Yep.
So we walk up, and it's called Center City in Philadelphia. It's the heart of Philly, really nice area, you know, where everybody goes shopping, the restaurants. If you're familiar with Chicago, it's similar to like the Gold Coast, any really nice kind of ritzy area, so to speak, in any major city. I walk up one block, and there's a pharmacy there, and there's about 20 people just looting the pharmacy, smashing the windows, going in, and we can see they're like literally trying to take the ATM out of the store, right?
Wow.
So, and this is, remember, I'm just started, so I'm 20 minutes into my shift, and I'm freaking out, you know, like, oh my God, this is wild, this is crazy, they're looting this pharmacy, they're trying to take the ATM, oh my God, you know, like, I was like, this is crazy, there's just 20 people, right? I walk up the next block, I look to my left, and there's no joke, 3,000 people looting the entire 4 blocks.
Wow.
It was the wildest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life, and I will never see it again. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm literally thousands and thousands of people looting and breaking into every store, running with all sorts of merchandise. So now we're filming, right? We're filming. This is wild. Remember, at this point, you know, it's crazy because now I'm just another black guy. People might think I'm a looter or a protester because remember, I got a backpack on, I got COVID hair, I got an inside out t-shirt. I do not look like who you think I'm supposed to look like, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we're going down there. They see the big cameras. Some people are like throwing bottles at us and stuff, like, you know what I mean? While we're filming this, it's just crazy. And then all of a sudden the cops start to move in, and my photographer's getting billy clubbed. And he's trying to say, I'm an essential worker, or allowed to be here. They're in my face threatening to arrest me. They don't know who I am at that point, you know what I mean? And I'm not even trying to tell them who I am, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not even going to get the job done. They're threatening to arrest me. They're, you know, threatening to harm us. I'm like, I literally had it on video. My photographer just getting clubbed, you know what I mean? They're trying to break back all the protesters. And yeah, that was my Saturday night. And we were live, and I was live showing cop cars burnt out. I'm live on TV showing people literally break into stores in front of our face and come running out with armloads of clothes. And I mean, people were just driving into the city, driving on the streets and just picking up stuff off the ground because looters were dropping everything. There was like all sorts of brand new stuff. I mean, and these are blocks and blocks in a major city that were like basically overtaken by protesters and looters. Like, the cops didn't have control, or they just let them do it because they didn't want to start anything. You know what I mean? There was a weird dance there because anything, you know, the tensions are so high, and anything that police did at that point could even escalate something even worse than what just happened. So it's like there was almost maybe this sitting back and do your thing and let you do whatever you want, and then we'll maybe come in later. And those couple of weeks, it was crazy because it's, you know, obviously I'm black. There's a big, gigantic race component to this. There's a component of some people blame the media, don't like the media. You know what I mean? There's that large component of that. You're dealing with COVID, and you're supposed to try and be responsible, but you can't with that.
Yeah.
There's just, there's so many things coming together at once it's kind of hard to even really explain, you know, like I'm not even doing it justice, but it was a really scary time, just because, you know, like you're just getting, you know, you just don't know where it's going to come from. You don't know if you're going to get attacked out there. You don't know if people are going to have your back. It was just weird. You're getting stuff thrown at you. You're trying to document this, and obviously people don't want to be filmed breaking the law like that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And now when you get into some of this stuff that people don't realize, these aren't just regular crimes. Some of it, like when you go after ATMs, this is federal stuff, man. You know what I mean? These are federal crimes when you're trying to break into an ATM or steal an ATM. Some of these break-ins go more than just a simple robbery. You know what I mean? Some of these things now, you know, when you burn a cop car down, that's now a federal crime. You know what I mean? Like some of this stuff goes past, I'm just going to get me a pair of Nikes. You know what I mean? Like, and it lasted here for, I mean, they looted probably for like 3 days, like straight. And then, but people protested for, you know, probably 2 weeks or so. There's still sporadic protests still going on right now. But yeah, it was just a wild, crazy time that I'll never forget. Just that looking down to my left and literally seeing thousands of people just literally, all you heard was alarms going off and windows breaking. You know, that's all you heard, and screaming. You know, that's all you heard. If you can picture that, just, you know the sound of an alarm going off. That's all you heard, because every store, like when I was going live, I was trying to paint the picture and people didn't understand. I was like, guys, literally every single store down here is broken into. I said, there's not one miss. There's hundreds of stores that are broken into, and some of this may never look the same ever again. You know, it's just, I mean, you understand frustration, you understand anger, you know. It's just crazy, man. It's just crazy.
Well, hey man, I appreciate you sharing some of that, Aaron. And I mean, I commend you and all the folks that do what you guys do. And I was talking with Jeremy. I said, why do you think that the media in many cases, and that probably in all cases, is a target? I mean, why do you think that is with some of the people that were involved in that stuff, man?
Well, there's different levels to that question. The media is a target because the media has been made a target. So when somebody,
in your opinion, by who?
Well, there was always a sentiment of, and you know, always an underlying sentiment, always of distrust, a little bit probably with the media, just because anytime there's a difference between fake news and getting something wrong. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So anytime there's a big gigantic burden more than ever on the media or on reporters to get it right, because you can't even make an honest mistake, because if you make an honest mistake right now, that's considered fake news. No, it isn't. Sometimes you just make an honest mistake. Fake news is purposely putting something out there that's wrong in order to try to deceive someone. That's fake news. Yeah. Saying 13 people were shot, but 6 were, that's not fake news. That's getting your facts wrong and making a mistake, okay? Listen, where do you think the fake news thing came from? You know what I mean? I
think we all know that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So that became a rallying cry, and then lots of people who support that jumped behind it, right? So then it just morphed. It morphed into that, you know. And now it's just fake news just to say it, just to kind of be that person. And then with so much stuff on the internet that people purposely put out there that is wrong. Yeah. It's hard to decipher what's real or not. But then you just also have people who just don't like the media because they're showing you something that you don't agree with. You know what I mean? So you can't always be shown something that is going to agree with your viewpoint. You know what I mean? If you're going to evolve, if you're going to do any critical thinking, you also have to look at different subjects from different viewpoints, right? So anytime now people show you something that, you know, you may disagree with, now they just get mad at the media. You know what I mean? And it's not just one-sided. And just because I show you another side, it's not my fault. It's not fake news. And it's just kind of it's morphed into this just crazy thing. And then there's just some people just don't like the media because they don't want the media there in a situation showing you something. You know what I mean? So like, there was always that, like, there's always been get that camera out my face. You know what I mean? It's always kind of been there forever. Yeah. You know? And I respect that. Listen, I respect that. That's completely different than a fake news thing. It's like, yeah, let me get that camera out my face. I don't want that camera here. I don't want you guys here filming this. I get that. So there's that aspect of not liking the media, right? And obviously with looters and stuff there, they don't want you there. So they're going to throw bottles and stuff at you because they don't want you filming them do bad stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's just there's a fake news element that it gets me so angry because I don't know, especially locally. All right. Let me put it, I'm going to say all local level news departments. All right. I'm not talking about any of the networks and the talking heads, which mostly every single person is really talking about. They're talking about opinionated talking heads who are giving their opinion.
Yeah.
And that's where the fake news is. Oh, some guys up there or girls up there giving you an opinion that you don't like, and you're going to call it fake news. Most 99.9% of people in local news in your local cities, they're not doing anything purposely to give you something that's fake or not real. There are humans that make honest mistakes, but everybody I know is trying to do the best they can with what they got. But the opinionated talk shows has really like led that fake news charge because people are watching those, and most of those are about politics or people's policies, and they're giving their opinions on those policies, which is fine. But lots of folks are taking those opinions as that means it's fact. No, it's somebody's opinion. They're a talking head giving you an opinion, and then that's where the fake news starts. You know, oh, fake news. I heard on whatever that this guy said that this. Well, that's a guy's opinion. That's not facts. That's not a news report. That's a guy talking or a woman talking about their opinion on a policy, you know? And I don't think the fake news is just morphed into local news, but I think most of that has to do with like the talking heads, you know?
I got you.
At least I think so.
No, I'm on the same page with you, man. I love your perspective and your insight. Excuse me. And, you know, again, great respect for what you do. I'm going to try to put a bow on it here a little bit. It was a simpler time when we worked in Lansing, wasn't it?
Yeah, everything, man. I mean, everything, man. No wife, no kids, you know what I mean? Making no money, but still having fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, didn't really have much care about stuff. You know, you're just trying to make it. You know, there's fun and excitement in the simplicity sometimes of just trying to make it. You know what I mean? And just trying to get to where you want to be at, and just kind of looking forward like that. And it was great back then, you know, like you meet some friends, you meet people, you're scared to death about some things, but you also learn to go out and enjoy yourself and have fun. And yeah, you start to grow up and move on, and you got more responsibilities, you got more bills, you got more kids, you got more worries. And it was definitely much simpler back then. You know, I'm happy where I'm at. I mean, don't get me wrong.
I know you are. Totally.
But it was definitely much simpler. Yeah, it was a simple life. I just had to worry about myself, get up, get to work, trying to pump something out, and then let's go get after it, and then try and do it again the next day. You know?
Yeah. Any chance you're going to play any defense in these videos? I see you playing basketball with your son, man.
I do sometimes. Nah, he loves it, man. It's great. Yeah, you know, like we play. He loves it. I mean, like his name's Drew, my oldest son. He's 10.
Cool.
He's going in the 5th grade, and he's just like he lives and breathes basketball. All basketball. He does is watch NBA videos.
Awesome.
We live on NBA TV even now with no basketball. And he plays probably like an hour and a half every single day. When I mean play, I don't mean go outside and shoot, you know, recklessly at the basket. I'm talking about hardcore drilling and, you know, working on it for like an hour and a half. Yeah, and crushing me. And he's good, you know what I mean? Like he can play, and I have fun. I mean, that's what I live for now. You know what I mean? Like that's what, especially during COVID, but that's what I live for. I love seeing him being happy. basketball and sports makes him happy. I look forward to just being out there and having fun with him on the basketball court, because I know he wants me to be out there and he's having fun doing it. And quite honestly, that's what I look forward to every single day. I mean, every single day. That's what makes me go, especially during now when we don't have a lot of options. I just like being outside with my kids and seeing, as you know, when you see your son or your daughter really enjoying something, be it reading, math, writing, ballet, in your case, lacrosse, whatever it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you see how happy it makes them, it makes you happy, and it makes you feel like you're doing something kind of right. You know what I mean? And hopefully it stays that way. Hopefully that's all you want, right? You want your kids to find something that they can sink their teeth in and be happy doing. And he loves basketball, so we just try and have fun in the driveway when we can.
I like seeing those videos, man, like yourself and, our buddy Paul Lashinsky, he's got a little boy.
Yeah.
And, he's having his wife's having another one. And, it's just cool to see that. And I know this, but man, enjoy it because it goes fast. I mean, mine's 19. He's going to be a sophomore. And you're spot on, man. I mean, last year for me personally was tough in the sense that it didn't work out where he went to play in college the first time. So I haven't seen him play. By the time he plays, hopefully in the spring where he's going now, it'll be almost 2 years since I've seen him play, man. And that's a big hole as a parent. It's a big hole. And it makes me happy to see you and all the other folks that we worked with back then, 16, 17, 18 years ago, Aaron, doing well. But I really mean this sincerely from right here, man. I got to sit up a little bit. I really mean it from there. It makes me so happy to see guys like yourself and guys and gals that we worked with enjoying that time with their kids, man. And this was fun, man. I really, really enjoyed reconnecting with you. And
thanks for having me on, man.
You've aged very well. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
Trust me, my body's still old though.
You look
my
good,
body
man.
Still hurts. It still hurts though.
I'm almost 50, dude. I get it.
right. Every day, sometimes it's a challenge, but kids try and keep you young. Like I said, I got a 10 and a 5-year-old. Try and keep me young. Try and stay active. You know what I mean? For as long as I can. And no, it's been fun. I appreciate you having me on. I enjoy watching you, man, too. I'm always turning on CBS Sports Net to get my fix of some of the stuff that you call. I've even showed my son some of the stuff when you're on. He doesn't believe. He he loves it when he sees guys like you. He's like, you got to him. You're the big guys. You know what I mean? Like you're oh my God, oh he's doing that. He gets to call the game, which is great. I mean, we all at one point who love sports wanted to do what you do. So it's cool. And I have mad respect for you. I'm not just saying it. I was always a fan. I always loved you back in the day too. You know what I mean? Like you treated me well too. I mean, I was a young dude coming in and didn't know much, but you always treated me right. I don't forget that type of stuff. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you too, man. Anytime you need me for anything you ever need, I'm far away, but don't hesitate, my guy.
You're in my living room right now, man. And thank you. And I feel the same way, man. That was, again, when I started thinking about this last week and I said, I got to get a bunch of the old crew together, man, because it's so rare. And now obviously, as you told, and what's going on, like there's not a whole lot of togetherness and we all understand why.
Right.
And that was something special, man. That was a great group of people, some incredibly talented people. And it's great to see guys like yourself and Jeremy and so many others and Jason, keep up the great work, man. And I think everyone, myself included, we're all behind Jeremy Ross in terms of how many awards we've won. That guy wins an award every week, doesn't he?
Yeah, Ross is good, man. He's good at what he does. He was always a good writer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He could always write. And where he's at now, they value that. You know what I mean? So it's a good fit. It's great when you can find something that fits you. You know what I mean? And it just works. So yeah, like you said, so many people who were there in Lansing have gone on to be really valuable and good at their jobs in different places and are still doing it years later. So yeah, kudos to him and to everybody, man, just still doing it.
Right on, man. Well, keep on keeping on. Keep up the great work. Enjoy your kids and your family. Be safe and stay healthy and all those great things. And I'll keep an eye on you on social media, and I know you'll keep kicking ass, man. So thanks for this, Aaron.
Sounds good. All right, man. I'll see you later.
All right, Aaron Baskerville, NBC 10 in Philadelphia, my guest today here on episode 54 of No Holding Back. Until next time, Ben Holden, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the road.